Hello, everybody, and a happy new year to everybody on this channel, on Al's channel. Getting ready for New Year's Eve. It is New Year's Eve here in Australia. Getting you ready for the New Year's Eve slate of games in the NBA with your DraftKings first look. Before you get ready for it, though, hit subscribe, hit it down below, knock that bell in as well, so that you never miss an episode. There is because of New Year's Eve. There are 7 games on, but they are spread weirdly across the day. So we're going to look at 2 main slates. There's the early 2-game slate, and then there's a late 5-game slate that we're going to have a look at. So let's crack into those right now. The first game up is the Cavs. It is the Pacers. TJ Warren is out for Indiana with his foot. That's troubling. Kevin Love is also out for Cleveland, as is Kevin Porter, as is Isaac Okoro. If we're looking at value here, with Warren out, someone's going to start. Obviously, someone new is going to start. I think that person that's going to start is going to be Aaron Holiday, pushing Victor Oladipo up to the small forward position. Now, Holiday has not been great necessarily, but at 3,500, could he be a 20-point guy? Maybe. That enables you to get some other guys in on this early slate. So he's at least worth a look. You could also look at his brother, Justin Holiday, at 3,900. I think Justin is worth a look as well. He's probably going to retain his bench role, but his minutes will spike a little bit as well with Warren sidelined. With Warren out, more usage goes to Oladipo, it goes to Brogdon, and it goes to Sabonis. And Sabonis is at 8,800. He's been really, really good this season. He's averaging, 50 DraftKings points per game? And at 8,800, I have to like that quite a lot. Malcolm Brogdon has also been impressive. He's at 7,300. Also been putting up the big numbers, averaging 38 points. I don't like him quite as much as I do Sabonis, but I still like those guys there. On the Cavs side of things, Darius Garland has been great this year. He's averaging almost 40 DraftKings points per game. No reason he can't be a 35-pointer. And at 6,100, there is a lot of value still in Darius Garland there. I'm probably less interested in Colin Sexton at 6,900 and Andre Drummond, who has just been carving teams up, putting up, honestly, monster numbers, 55 a game. He is at 8,900. When you can compare him and Sabonis, $100 difference, but averaging almost 4.5 extra points per game, Drummond is. I think you could use both of those players here. I feel like Drummond is more of a stat stuffer than what Sabonis is. He probably would be the guy that I would go for, but they're both full of some pretty important value in this one. If we go to the next game, it is the Chicago Bulls. They are taking on the Washington Wizards. We saw this matchup already, and we saw Chicago embarrass the Wizards to get their first win of the season. The Wizards, of course, still without that win. Lauri Markkanen is questionable with his calf issue, so we don't know if he's going to play, while Rui Hachimura is back. We didn't expect him back this quickly. That's going to throw some chaos into the front court rotation. Davis Bertans, Denny Avdia. How does it look with Tom Bryant? Does it impact guys like Troy Brown, Isaac Bonga? So there are some question marks there. Westbrook's at 9,900. That's really hard to ignore. Look at what he's averaging. Almost 60 fantasy points per game. I think it's one of the best plays on this early slate. Probably is actually the best play on this early slate. And then Kobe White at 6,300 also. Now, he hasn't really been going yet, but I think that means he's going to be lowly rostered, and that could work out really nicely for you. I do like Kobe White quite a bit here. Wendell Carter's at 6,000. Yeah, it's totally fine for cash, but I'm not sure the upside's there. When Tom Bryant's the opposite, I wouldn't want to use him in cash, especially with Westbrook thieving rebounds. At 6,400 for Tom Bryant's probably a little bit too expensive. I do like Levine at 7,900. You feel like he's going to at least push towards that 40-point most games. He's averaging 41 over the last 3 games, and he had 46 last time out against this team, while Beal is all the way up at 9,500. And Beal is great. Don't get me wrong, but when you get Sabonis and Drummond in that earlier game for sub 9,000 and they are performing at a higher level, I would rather spend on them and spend 9,900 on Westbrook than spend that on Brad Beal. Hachimura's at 5,100 for his first game. I'm just not really sure what the minutes are going to look like for Rui. I think he's maybe a mid-20s guy in points, and that's not great. Pat Williams, Otto Porter, they're not really going to do that for me. So let's leave this screen. Let's go into the lobby and find one of the non-early slate games for tomorrow. So I can bring that up and show you that for the 5 games in the afternoon. It is an interesting one, and I'm glad they've sort of broken it up that way to have the slate positioned the way that it is. The next game we look at, though, is the Philadelphia 76ers. It is the Orlando Magic. The Sixers are 3-point favorites in this one, and the total is 217 points. For the Magic, James Ennis is out again. We assume, but we don't know, that Aaron Gordon is going to be on some sort of minutes restriction, as he seems to have been every time out this season. If we want to look at value here in this one, I think Fultz at 6,300 is a strong cash guy. I'm not sure there's much upside. Aaron Gordon's the opposite, though. If the minutes restriction isn't there, then he'll smash his number, but we don't know that. And Joel Embiid has just been destroying teams. He is listed as probable, despite DraftKings saying questionable. He's listed as probable. He's averaging, 54 a game. He had 63 last time out. He should be good for 50 against Nikola Vucevic. Now, Vuce has done well against Embiid in the past, so don't completely ignore him. He's at 8,700. He's putting up good numbers again this season, but his last 3 games against Philadelphia, Vuce is averaging almost 45 points per game. So if you don't want to take Embiid, or you could put both these guys together, I think they could work out in a lineup. Toby Harris at 7,100. The last couple have been really strong from Toby. He's averaging over 40 in his last 3. That looks all right to me. Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, not all that much excitement in those guys, I don't believe. But you could consider them. I just don't think that's probably optimal to do that. Let's move on now. The next game up on this New Year's Eve slate is the Sacramento Kings. It's the Houston Rockets. This is a tough one to get a full read of because the Rockets are bringing in John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and Eric Gordon for the first time this season. So we're not going to get those massive minutes and usage for Harden, the massive minutes and usage for Wood. It is going to be spread around a little bit more, so that makes it intriguing. Hassan Whiteside's at 3,500. Look, he has been doing as close to nothing as possible, so I wouldn't want to use him. Harden's at 11, averaging 67 so far this season, which is obviously really, really good. Can he bring you 60 points again? I might be inclined to fade him in this one just because of the uncertainty. Cousins at 5,000 is absolutely worth a GPP flyer. We saw him put up some really big numbers in the preseason in limited minutes, while Christian Wood's at 73. And while I do think there will be an impact on Wood, I don't think it's going... Look, he's averaging 46, so he's already smashing that number already. I think that he can be a 40-point type of a guy. Johnny Wall's at 71. I'd probably leave that alone for now. While for the Kings, that front court's confusing. Whiteside, Holmes, Bagley, hard to get on board with any of those guys. If I want to look at one Kings player, it is De'Aaron Fox at 7,800, who did come back last game against the Nuggets and put up nice 47er, but he had been down prior to that. But I think this might be a good tempo game. That could work for Fox. And then you got the rookie Tyrese Halliburton, who is putting up some really good numbers. He is at 4,900. His last game yielded us, if I can just find the number, 32 points, which is great on DraftKings. Is his upside that high? I'm not sure that it is, but I think there is at least a solid floor level in what Tyrese Halliburton's been doing and what he's able to provide for us from a DraftKings perspective. Next up, it is the Knicks. It is the Toronto Raptors. There's a few injuries we need to pay attention to for the Knicks. Alec Burks is still listed as questionable. Obi Toppin is out. Emmanuel Quickley is questionable, while Kevin Knox is in. And by in, I mean he'll be on the court and do nothing, as he usually does. The Raptors were confusing last game as they really limited Chris Boucher. Not that confusing when you consider that he's had no chance of matching up against Embiid, really. But Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel, a much better opportunity for Boucher. Van Vliet's been down. There's no doubt about that. His salary has dropped. But I better clear those spots out before I put him in. At 7,200, I don't think many people will be going for Fred. I think he's got 40 points written all over him here. I like it. Alec Burks at 55. The price looks really sexy, but the injury is somewhat of a worry. I'm not going to use him there. I think Julius Randle at 88 we have to look at. Now, a lot of people are going to be on Randle because he's putting up just absolute monsters. He had 64 last game. He's averaging 51 over the season. And a lot of that's coming from his passing. There is some unsustainable three-point shooting in there. So there is a little bit of bust factor with Julius Randle. I don't think the price of him, though, completely reduces his value. Alfred Payton at 59. I'm only interested in Payton if Burks and Quickley are out. He was terrible the first couple of games. I really did pick it up the last few, though. There's no doubt. But the first couple, he was bad when everyone was there. So I'm not going to super commit to him at this point. Robinson's at 56. Emmanuel Quickley's at 31. I wouldn't want to use him first game back. No one's going to be using Chris Boucher. I think we feel pretty good about that at 5,200. So therefore, in a GPP, I'd be inclined to go back. Remember, it is matchup based. There's no Embiid. There's no Dwight Howard. It's Mitch Robinson and Nerlens Noel. Boucher can hold his own there. Boucher could very easily come out. Well, we saw what he did. Like, we saw his last few games where, what did he have? 1 point against Philadelphia, 1 DraftKings points, 53 points against the Spurs. Like, he could very easily have a 50 or a 40, and people are going to be off him. I think that he is worth a look. While OG Anunoby at 5,800, people might be inclined to gravitate a little bit to him after his big performance in the last game. But yeah, prior to that, he'd had 26 and 29, and that's not really enough at that 5,800 mark. It's not bad, but I just think that he might be a little bit too highly rostered, in my opinion. Next up is the Pelicans and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's have a look at those guys and see what sort of value we can get here in the second last game of the day. The Pelicans here are favored by 5, and the total is 213.5. Now, they're obviously coming off an absolute ass-kicking by the Phoenix Suns in that last game, which they need to do better than that, obviously, because that was terrible. Value-wise here, Darius Bazley's at 57. He struggled a little bit last time out, but I'm in on him. And remember, the big guy last time was Isaiah Roby for the Thunder, but Al Horford and George Hill are likely back, so Roby's value is going to be muted. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's at 81, one of the best, most rock-solid players that you can look at, I think, for cash. Should be 40 almost every game, so I really like Shai there. Eric Bledsoe's just a punt guy. I'm not interested. Al Horford at 61 is probably priced a little bit too high. And then you got someone like George Hill at 47, who's been playing well when he's been out there. If we look at Hill, he's averaging, 31 points so far, and that is a cheap price for a 31-point-per-game sort of producer. Lou Dort's at 51. He can go above it. He can go below it. He's a little bit inconsistent with that shot. In general, if I'm going to look at Lou Dort, I'll bank on the shot not going in rather than the shot going in, which is what happened 2 games ago, where he had 22 versus 37 points. I think that he's fine for a tournament, but realistically, that's probably all we're looking at for Dort. I wouldn't want to rely upon him in a cash format. And again, with Isaiah Roby, who we talked about before, it's hard to rely upon him just because he was out of the rotation, literally. And will he get the backup center minutes over Mike Muscala? He's not going to start over Al Horford. That makes it tough. The last game is the Suns and the Jazz. The Jazz, they're favored by 3.5, and the total is 218. Not a huge amount of value in this one standing out. Like, Gobert at 75 is fine. He should be a 40-point player. Like, that's totally fine. It's not huge upside value, but it's totally fine there. Don Mitchell's at 76. Hasn't been great, but he is averaging 45 his last 3 against the Suns. I think that that's at least worth a GPP look at the worst. While Chris Paul at 7,000 is struggling, as is Devin Booker at 86. I wouldn't want to trust them yet. They haven't figured out their chemistry, nor has DeAndre Ayton, and they're all 7,000 or higher. And so it is a little bit hard to get excited about using guys like Booker and Don Mitchell at this point, just given the uncertainty with how they're all fitting together and how that production is looking. You got Bojan Bogdanovic at 5,800, which is not a bad cash play, but realistically, I'd say that's probably about all we have for him. I don't think his upside is all that high. That'll do it. That is the New Year's Eve slate of games in the NBA. Give it a like, give it a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, notifications, check me out as well. You know me, I'm the host of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast and the lead analyst at basketballmonster.com. Find my YouTube channel as well. You can click the link in the description and in the title of this show. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See ya.